Have you ever struggled with your emotions and what to do when you have them? Hi, my name is Joseph and I am a licensed therapist with Evolve, our holistic wellness practice where we have different specialties of how we can help people and work with people in their health. Today, Tyler, our CEO and holistic health specialist, sat down with Charles R. Fisher. He is our emotion and spiritual coach. He's a certified life coach, and he sat down with us to talk about what he does as an emotion coach, as a spiritual coach, what those things are, defines what a lot about emotions and about spirituality, and also how he came to be doing this role in the first place. We're really excited for this conversation we had with Charles, and we're looking forward to hopefully from what you hear that'll be a benefit to you, and that you'll be encouraged that you're not alone in the struggles with your emotions or with your own spiritual journey, and that you would benefit from watching this video. Check out this conversation with Charles.
So you can tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become an emotion coach.
So, really, since I was little, I wanted to help people somehow. And by the time I was a teenager, I really definitely wanted to help people. And by 15 or 16, I had a passion for teaching or speaking. And so that's what all drove me to go to the college I went to. And so I went to college right here in Bel Air.
Nice.
And then from there, I took a general degree so that I could pick my electives, because I was like, how do I going to most help the people that I want to help? So I did a general ministry degree and then was able to cherry pick all my electives to what I wanted to do to be able to help people. And so that was kind of a unique experience to be able to line it up that way. And then really after graduation and then landing within a church environment, I was able to work with families and teenagers, and
Nice.
I oversaw from infants all the way through college age most of the time, but I worked most specifically with teenagers and senior high and middle school kids. Was who I worked with the most. And then from there, I ended up working at a daycare. Now, at the daycare is where the passion for emotion coaching really started. So I had a passion for helping people, but then it shifted to a passion for coaching and emotion coaching at the daycare. Because while there, I just got more and more wanting to be in classrooms and wanting to be around kids and wanting to teach and learn as much as I could. And so ended up going back to school for your early childhood education certificates and different childhood psychology classes and things like that. And it was during that time at the daycare that I was like, man, I really have a passion for specifically helping kids, but really helping anybody understand their emotions and be able to put a name to it and be able to find good strategies and tools. That, I think, is a big key. And so I wanted to be able to help, because in the classroom, any emotion coaching or teaching you're doing in a classroom for emotions, you're really just doing behavior management. The bottom line is, I want this kid to behave in this environment. I want him to act the right way. And so you're really just trying to domesticate a kid. So that's, which is fine. There's reasons for that. There's purpose to that. But I wanted to do more with that. And so that's where that passion for wanting to do emotion coaching comes in. Because, and then even more specifically with dads, I feel like, I'm a feeler. I'm a wear my emotions on my sleeve type of person. And as a man in our culture, you're not supposed to be a feeler. That's been a constant restraint that has been put on people for a long time. Is don't be too emotional. Don't wear your feelings out there. You got to stuff that down deep. The whole Frozen mentality. Conceal, don't feel, right? And so that's how we're supposed to be. And
Which is dangerous.
It's super dangerous. And so then you have people like that raising kids who are then struggling, where they go, well, maybe my kid's feelings are valid, but they have no context of how to help that kid.
Sure.
And so they're only going to do what they grew up with doing. Even if they want better, they might not know how to do better. And so that's where my passion for coaching comes in, is being able to be a partner with somebody and just say, hey, here's some tools, here's some tricks for yourself and for your kid. Those are things that are great. And even if you don't have kids, I love to help people just be able to process because we all have, grief or anger or, different things that we want to learn how to manage better or differently, not even better, that's not the great word, but differently than we do now. And so being able to help people with that and develop tools and strategies, because the more you have in your toolbox ready to go, the better equipped you are when something comes up,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can only imagine just how helpful that'll be, and especially for people at a young age too. Like I remember, so when I was a kid, I went to an elementary school where we had the best guidance counselor ever.
Nice.
And she was awesome. I spent time in her office all the time, and I remember she did these classroom visits every once in a while. And that was the only time that we ever learned about emotion and communication and things like that. And she really went the extra measure to teach those things.
Right.
She taught me things that I still use. Like, I still think about, And I just can imagine, if I had even more than that, if I had been able to learn more about my emotions and how to, name them and communicate them and how to regulate, and not, regulate, stuff them down, but, how to deal with different emotions, because that is totally how I learned to deal with it, was, just stuff it down. Just put it away. And, that's not helpful. Coming into my adult years, I'm that was not a helpful and useful way to treat my emotions. And I can only imagine, if learning at a young age how to do that, how much more, of, an emotionally regulated adult I would be, an emotionally healthy adult.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel like so many of us are like that. We didn't learn it as a child.
But it's saying, hey, your feeling is valid, and here's something you can do with it.
Yeah. That's so good, too, because I feel like we have, this spectrum here of, people who, don't even know how to validate themselves. They don't validate themselves for how they're feeling at all. And then you have people who, want to be heard so much and, feel that they're valid, but then don't know how to deal with that, right? And then, they need someone to come alongside them and just like you're saying, go, yeah, you're right, you are valid, but that doesn't mean you can do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we've just got, that spectrum of people of how they're dealing with their emotions or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, how helpful it is to know how to healthily, emotionally regulate that.
Right. And then when you start to know that about yourself, then it becomes easier to have more grace with other people.
Sure.
Because then when you start to realize, hey, when I flew off the handle yesterday about this spill on the counter, it really had nothing to do with the spill on the counter. It had everything to do with the fact that I'm running late for work and now I'm cleaning up a spill on the counter.
Yep.
And it had nothing to do with the spill on the counter. The spill on the counter was a paper towel's worth of spill. But I flew off the handle because it was I was already running late for work, And so when we realize that about ourselves, we not only are we able to healthily deal with things better, but we have more patience for someone else who then also flies off the handle about something.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we're oh man, I have no idea what that was about, but it might not have anything to do with me, right?
Yeah.
It might have nothing to do with what I just said or what just happened. It has everything to do with what happened somewhere else,
And that's a great thing you're pointing out, if you know how to emotionally regulate, if you're working on your emotions, you not only have more compassion for yourself, but it gives you more compassion for other people, which is amazing. Right?
A world I want to live in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely, because you go in public, and it's even what you're saying with violence. Is you have different people experiencing strong emotions, and for valid reasons.
Yeah.
But that compassion and understanding is sometimes non-existent, and that's a part of the goal of working through our emotions and understanding how we feel and how that's impacting our decisions, because it's easy, I think, for a lot of us to see the spill on the counter, and we were just so pissed about the spill on the counter, not realizing that we were all those other reasons of why we were already ready to be upset. There's other things underneath it.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little more to kind of the training and education you've gotten in this area?
Sure. So I have my bachelor's degree from a general ministry standpoint, and so my bachelor's degree has an emphasis on teaching and educating and preaching and things like that. And then I have a life coaching certification through a school of psychology, and so just being able to help people set goals and make plans and be able to work through goal setting and working that out. And then I have a background in early childhood development, so I've been able to take and I have I'm actually fully qualified to be a director from infants through school age for a center in Maryland.
That's
so I
awesome.
have any of the qualifications for that. So just being able to work with children and in any of those stages and be able to work through their development and where they're at.
Right. Yeah, because it's very different for different ages,
Right.
age groups.
And so those three things I feel like partner together and brings together this
Yeah.
concept of emotion coach. When you have a background in teaching and preaching, and then you move into a life coaching world of setting goals and being able to say these are tangible things I can work towards, and then pulling in the education side of being like, hey, I understand the way a child's mind works in each of those stages, like you pulled in.
Yeah.
And so you land in that emotion coaching just kind of fits naturally with those three things lumped together.
And that's incredible, right? Because I think that's what you look for in anyone that you're seeking help from. You seek that, for one, they're going to be able to not be extremely critical of you and hard on you, so that type of person, that compassionate person. And then you also, the biggest thing is, even if there are that, more importantly, they know what they're talking about.
Right.
It sounds like you're very well versed and you know what you're talking about. Especially when it comes to this very niche thing of emotion coaching.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and then I did forget I feel like the biggest, education has been being a father myself when it comes to actually working it out. These are things that it's not just, theory. This is,
Yeah, you put it into practice.
I'm working on putting things into practice. So when I try to help somebody with a tool, it's very rare that I would come up with a tool that I haven't already been working with my son on.
Sure.
And so that's a plus side too of just having that. I mean, that's the biggest the biggest and best classroom I've had is my own son and what he teaches me, right?
Yeah.
So you've got the background to work with people on it, but then I've got, hands in the ground working on it too.
And what's great is you said you've worked at a daycare too, so you have all different personalities of kids that
Right.
you've worked with as well.
Yeah, I had 7 years at the daycare that I was at different roles, various roles throughout my time there, but I was there in that environment for 7 years.
So you work with kids, but you also work with adults. So can you speak a little bit to what a session might look like with a child, and then what it might, and I'm guessing their parent as well, and then
Sure.
what it would look like with an adult?
Sure. So with a child, I would want to focus on some of the biggest things is just naming those emotions, and so really tapping into early emotional intelligence and being able to be, when this toy was taken from me, what did I feel, and being able to work through those types of things, and then in the process of working with a kid and working with a child is definitely the mindfulness exercises to teach a kid to work through, because no matter how much stuff they do have in their toolbox, the first thing is those breaths and the things that can calm your brain down. Because
Sure.
if you don't have the calm down thing first, no other tool matters. No communication skill after that matters. If you
That's
don't
like a
have
full-blown tantrum right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have any of that regulation, so it would be teaching regulation stuff. It would be teaching how to take those deep breaths, because sometimes in the moment you tell a kid, you're like, take a deep breath, and the kid's like, that's not a deep breath, right?
Yep.
So teaching a kid, hey, smell the flower and then blow the petals away, type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that you're taking the deep breath in and letting the deep breath out. Those types of moments, I think, are important when you're working with a kid. And sometimes I've worked with, in the past when I've worked with kids in different situations, sometimes you do that through gameplay. You might be playing a game, maybe playing cards, and getting to the idea where the child can express some of those things they're going through, or the stuff that's
Sure.
most frustrating to them. By playing a game, you kind of loosen that mindset up, and you can kind of talk through things a little bit more. Those are things that lets that guard down. The kid can be starting to talk, and you can ask about their day because you're just sitting there playing a game. And man, if then they win because you were not really paying attention, you were talking to them, that's even better for
It's a
them.
really good day for them.
And then, so
Awesome.
with an adult, it could go one of two ways, because if it's a parent, then we're going to talk about, hey, what are the specific things that you're struggling with? How do you, Because most of the time I feel like I want to communicate better with my child. I want to be able to have that patience, but reality strikes in and I'm frustrated.
Sure.
And so it's recognizing the things that the trigger areas that they want to work through, and then trying to equip them with tools that they'll be able to work through and go through. And look, here's the thing. When it comes to working with kids and parenting, it's consistency of trying these things. But most people, if they get a tool and they're like, hey, I tried this once and it did not work, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
But actively trying them. And then if it doesn't work, the good thing about having a coach is going, you're right, that's not working. So
Yeah.
let's try something else.
Oh,
because a good
definitely,
coach isn't going to shove the same thing down your throat and be like, hey, you need to make it work. A good coach is going to be like, that's right, that's not working for you and your kid, so let's try something else.
Yeah, definitely.
And be able to work with other things. And so if you're a parent, that's what that session might look like. If you're not a parent and you're just saying, hey, I am just in my relationships, whether that's my people at work or people in family, oh my goodness, my family, any of that type of moment.
Yep.
There's emotion coaching that goes along with that too, of just how do I not explode on people at Christmas? How do I handle Christmas dinner when my dad says this and my mom says this and my aunt that makes this criticism or any of those things? Those are all things that a motion coach can come alongside you and just partner with you and be like, hey, this is how we can take what's happening here and how we internalize it and how we understand it and what we do with it and put out a different energy output, be like, this isn't how I'm going to do this anymore.
I think that's so great because I think so many of us as adults, we didn't have this as kids.
Right.
So we have picked up survival mechanisms along the way of how we handle our emotions, and a lot of us need help regulating those emotions and learning what those are. A lot of us aren't as emotionally intelligent as we'd like to be. So that's awesome.
What I'm hearing too is you'll either, how do I not blow up with my family? How do I not blow up with these people? Or it's, man, what this person is doing is really making me feel this way, and you're internalizing it.
Right.
Maybe you may not blow up at that person or that family member. It wrecks your whole day.
Right. Or week or month or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes those things that are said, you're right, they wreck us for an extended period of time. So it might not be the blow up, it might be the, how do I not take that and internalize it every single minute of every single day till the next time I see them?
Tyler, what you were saying with the survival mechanisms that we've picked up, we will, the one survival mechanism is to hold on to that emotion when we've been hurt, and to I have to, think about how I'm gonna act next time, or it's just subconsciously there, and then when you see that person, everything kind of comes out, and looking at those ways that we've survived in the past, and just challenging those ways and finding new ways, because I think that's where almost all of us are coming from, is things are not working in our adult life, and so it's really just okay, what can we do to fix it? And a lot of times I feel like it does come back to emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. And even thinking of through my own life experience, I had a pretty quick hipped temper, from high school through into college time. I was pretty well known for it, unfortunately. And so it's interesting, just going through to the point where you end up working in the environment I was at, and Mr. Rogers becomes your hero, and you're like, wait a minute. But that just is evidence of how things can change. And it's not just hey, I have to stay this person that I was. At some point, if you're thinking, I don't like the way I react to this, whether that's a sadness or an anger or anything, when you think, I don't like the way that I handle this scenario, but I don't know what to do, that's when a coach can come in and say, I can help. I can help you figure out what to do. Because if you are here and you want to be here and you don't know how to get there, that's frustrating. And then all that means is the next time you do feel sadness or anger or any of those emotions that you're having trouble regulating, then you just beat yourself up about it, because you're like, I can't believe I did that again. I can't believe I handled it that way again. And really, it's just working through the process of you can change it. It just takes the work and it takes the time. And most of us don't have that person that can come alongside us and help us through it.
Imagine someone working with you and they're beating themselves up because they're not doing the things that maybe you're recommending, or they recognize now like how much they're either messing up or not doing things the right way, and now they're conscious of it. Then it's almost like another emotion that's on the table when they see you, of like guilt and shame, and what is behind that emotion, and how to regulate that.
Right.
So it's almost like there's I can imagine, clients will come to see you, whether it's a child or an adult, and it's like, hey, I got to work on my frustration. And frustration is an interesting emotion because there's always something underneath of it, and there's almost always hurt or pain that's driving that anger, driving that frustration. And so I imagine people will come and work with you, and they're going to find out a whole lot more that maybe was underneath the original emotion that they were coming to you for.
The only kind of cautionary thing I would say is, as a coach, there might be some kind of working and digging that we do where we hit something really raw. And there may be times where I have to say, look, I think you need to take this another step forward and move them to a therapeutic regimen, or to the right therapist for that. So knowing that as a coach going in, like there could be a point, especially when you're tapping into emotions and why do I feel this way, and what's the source of this. There is the chance that we hit a nerve, and we have to realize there is some differences between therapy and coaching.
Right.
And so just knowing that there might be some things that it's like, hey, I can help you with strategies here, but you still might want to consider, reaching out to a therapist or moving on to a different thing. And so as a coach, I'm well aware that that's a possibility, and I think people also should be aware of that coming in, that there is that time. And maybe not. I mean, there might be people that we just work together and it works, and it's always smooth sailing or whatever, and we can work that way. But when you're digging into emotions, you're digging into that other stuff, right?
Yes.
You're digging into what's behind that. Where did that come from? And when you start digging into that, there might be a time, and there might be a time just to partner with the therapist, where I can still be your coach, and then you're also seeing a therapist as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because they'll come to you for different tools and things like that, and then talk through whatever trauma or life experience with the therapist. And I mean, that's great, because that's why we're here at Evolve, right? So it's a team of people working together, looking at a case together. And so if that were to happen with a client with you, they could see Joseph or a different therapist, know? But yeah, that's why we exist at Evolve in the way that we do, is we're all looking at your case together and finding the perfect healing for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then coming as a therapist and listening to that's so important, right? That for people to hear, knowing the difference between coaching and therapy, I think is critical, right? Because I think there isn't as much education about coaching and what exactly it is. So I think there can be the misunderstanding that when you see a coach, it's like then those things will come up. It's like, oh, this is where I handle those traumatic experiences and things, and that's not necessarily what you're offering. You're offering just, here are some skills and guidelines to work through different things, and you can meet that person in challenging times. But when it's starting to get to the trauma and different things that are coming up for them, I think partnering with a therapist is so good, and I think especially just for people to know that. And have clear expectations of when they're seeing a coach, that it's not therapy, but as a therapist, I may be seeing a client, and they may benefit more from maybe when I'm talking with them, I'm doing more coaching, because that's what they're requiring. So it doesn't necessarily have to be therapy that you're going for. What's really important, and I'm finding, is finding the right fit for each person, and meeting. As you're seeking out help, finding that person that is the right fit for you is critical. And it's often something that we talk about in the therapy field, in the profession, is the relationship that you have with your therapist. The client and the therapist relationship is the kind of the determining factor for success. And I think that is so true in a coaching. environment as well. The relationship that people have with you is going to be the determining factor for success. And I think a lot of people have been burned either by a coach or a therapist, and I think that's just what I would encourage everybody to do, is that there is that right fit for you, and keep searching for that person. And it's so great that there's different niches out there. There's therapists that are specialized in this specific thing, and what a great thing that you're offering that it's specific to emotions in the way that you're talking about. What a great resource for parents. What a great resource for children. And then just adults, even if kids are not in the picture, it's for adults of how do I properly and effectively regulate.
Right. Well, and even like, even though it might not be therapy, that doesn't mean it's not therapeutic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that going in. I also think that it's kind of nice though too, because coaching kind of is a little less threatening in some ways. So somebody who might be like, not really sure I want to go to therapy.
Sure.
But you might come to a coach because we might
Yeah.
just be buddies, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
we could, I mean, that's a really like
Right.
loose term of it, but we can
It's
talk
true,
things out a
though.
lot differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, and there might be stigmas about, therapy in your life, and a coach is way more accessible. So
Right.
I think it's great that we offer that too.
Yeah. So, in addition to emotion coaching, you offer spiritual coaching.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit more about what that is?
Sure. So, for spiritual coaching, it really would look like having a safe place to just brain dump what's on your mind spiritually. And so this is so important because what's the old adage, right? If there's something that you're not allowed to bring up in conversation, it's two things, right? Religion and politics.
Yeah.
Which there's really even more now. Like there's just
Yeah.
more stuff now. But
There's a lot more.
like those have been long standing. You don't talk about
Yeah.
religion and politics. And so when someone's struggling internally about their faith,
Yeah.
they don't know who to talk to because
Yeah.
they've been told not to talk about it. Like,
So true.
and so you don't have that person that you can just go to. And then what ends up happening is that you think you have it and you reach out to them, and this is an overgeneralization, but a lot of times what happens is they're like, this is the person I can reach out. This is the person I can dump, whether it's doubt or whether it's an exploration or whether it's something else or just a non-understanding of something of their faith. They want to dump it to somebody and then they're shamed for it. They're like, how dare you question
Yeah.
this, doubt that.
Yeah.
And so a spiritual coach is the safe place to brain dump and go get it on the table and have someone help you be like, well, let's take this stack and we can put these three things together and work on these. But then let's look at these things over here and let's talk about these things here. And then this thing over here is really similar to here, so let's talk about those things together.
Yeah.
And have that safe space to talk that through is what the spiritual coaching looks like.
That's so awesome.
Well, I imagine, and I feel like anyone struggling with their spirituality or doubts or whatever it may be, who do you go to? Someone who is religious.
Right.
And so, oftentimes, and this is, I guess, an overgeneralization, but if you're going to that person, they may have an agenda, right? And yeah, you're shamed for those feelings if they are not aligning with the religion of that religious person.
Or not even shamed, but just if you're going to someone who is a part of a certain religion and works in that, their job is to have you believe what they believe, right? To come alongside in that and to support you, right, in that specific faith or religion. But that might not be the right fit for you, right? There's
Right.
so many different ways to express our spirituality, and our spirituality is so personal.
Right.
It's not a cookie cutter thing, and we don't just align with what whoever we go to might believe, right? And so I think it's so important to have a safe space to express our doubts and to also explore our spirituality and what it means for us and our spiritual health.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I have a worldview that's my worldview, and
Right, like we all do.
Where I come out at problems and issues. But the nice thing about spiritual coaching is that that's a part of me. That's not necessarily a part of you as a client. And so when you brain dump, I'm going to help you organize your stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm not. So if you're coming to the table, right, and you've got a jigsaw puzzle, and I also come to the table and I have my jigsaw puzzle, we're not dumping those out on the table together.
Sure. Yep.
My jigsaw puzzle is for later that I look at, but I'm going to help you work on yours, right? Like, we're going to get your pieces out here and look at yours. And so even though I have a worldview, mine, like, it's here.
Yep.
And honestly, like, we could talk about it if that's what you wanted to talk about. But we're not going to dump those pieces together and try to figure out your puzzle.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
And what a safe and compassionate space. And in everything that I hear you talking about and everything that you do, I hear compassion just threaded through
Thanks.
all of that. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's just so loving, and I think, like, what a wonderful space for people to come into if they're hurting, if they're scared, if they're dealing with strong emotions, if they're wandering in their faith, because that can be such a difficult experience, you know, to, like, we have all these different dimensions of wellness, and spirituality is one of them, and unfortunately one that's often overlooked, you know, and it can really wreak havoc on our lives, especially even if spirituality's never been a part of your life, or if it was a really big part now that you're having doubts, like, it can be really challenging. And just what a wonderful thing to come to a place where there's nothing but love and compassion
Right.
for you.
And it's scary sometimes to go to mom and dad who raised me this way, like, to think this way, and go, I'm a little bit nervous about X, Y, Z, you know? Or I just don't understand this, and this. You know, it's a little scary to go to your parents or to your aunt and uncle or whatever, or whoever that person is for you that kind of raised you there. I mean, I was really lucky. I had a mentor for me that I was able to fully lay stuff out for, and
That's
I still,
awesome.
even now to this day, like, he was my person for my internship. He was my instructor. He was one of my college professors, and I consider him a dear friend. And he's still a person that I could brain dump safely to if I needed to.
That's awesome.
And then on that flip side, when I've been a mentor to someone else, I specifically remember a conversation, because when it comes to this stuff, authenticity is so important. And so when I was mentoring someone, I remember calling them when I was going through a really just hard time in my faith journey. And I called him and I said, I want you to watch me go through this. Because I'm struggling and this is going to be hard. And I want you to watch me do this.
Yeah.
Because there might become a time where you also have to do this. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it all right, but I want you to watch me do it. And so...
And how comforting that is to know that you're not alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because then when he does go through it, he knows that he could call me about it, right? Because
That's awesome.
when I'm like, when your mentor is like, hey, I'm going to just crash and burn. Like, and I need you to just see it.
Yeah.
There's
That's
something
amazing.
to
I've
that.
never heard of someone doing that, and that's incredible, because
Right.
it brings a humanist to this human experience
Yeah.
that's often made to feel sort of cold in that you're alone.
Right.
And that's amazing.
Right.
That's really amazing.
And so that's what spiritual coaching in my brain should be, is that safe space to go, what?
That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing with religion, right? And I always feel like religion and spirituality are different, right? Where it's like religion is how much you know about that spiritual belief or whatever it is, and then spirituality is how much that your personal walk. And so it's so hard to navigate that when you're trying to figure out your spirituality, but you're going to people that are coming from a very religious perspective, and coming with the perspective of, well, did you know this about this? And I don't think I've heard of that either. It completely flips the idea of a mentor upside down, because the mentor is supposed to walk you through what's going on, and they're supposed to be the people who have made it.
Right.
And that's it's just a whole flip side to what I've heard before.
I think
Right.
it's so much better just
Yeah.
to know that your mentor's human.
Right, because otherwise, if you've never had that glimpse, now, like I said, I was definitely blessed with a mentor that did similar things for me, and so, but if you don't know that, if you don't know a human side of your mentor, then when the poo poo hits the fan, like,
Yeah.
You don't want to. You're nervous to go to them.
Yeah, you feel shame
You're like,
like
I
going
don't-
to that
I don't-
person.
Yeah, that shame builds up. Even if they're not inflicting it on you, the spiral inflicts it. Like the internal dialogue puts it on you, and you're like, well, I shouldn't have this thought. I shouldn't have this doubt. I shouldn't have this exploration or anything. And in reality, those are like the nuances of life, right? Like as we're figuring things out, there's moments of uncertainty in something that we really feel like we should have it all figured out. And there's the little nuance of just trying to still piece it together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's important.
Yeah, definitely.
And thanks for sharing about that with the uncertainty, because I think that's spirituality almost in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's
Is-
just the
Right.
human experience with it.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, so that's a big part. And as we're sitting here talking, I also want to point out that sometimes I think spiritual coaching wouldn't necessarily be helping you go through uncertainty, but sometimes people are overextending themselves in a faith-based walk, and they might just feel complete overwhelm and burnout, and they might just need someone to say, hey, this is all the stuff I'm doing in my faith journey. Can you help me not do so much?
Yeah.
And so a coach can come alongside of you and help unpack that too. To say, hey, giving you permission to go, you can say no to this and say yes to this and talk that through. Or if it's not a worldview that I'm necessarily right away familiar with, just talk through, why is this so important to you? Why is this the thing that you're holding on to? Why are you trying to do all 10 of these things? Could you accomplish the same by doing 3?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And working through that.
And that's so important too, because like I mentioned a little bit ago, there's like so many different dimensions of wellness, and I've seen so many people that like hyper focus on one, like they're a total gym rat, or they're always, not that it's a bad thing to always practice your faith, but they're like constantly doing that, and they're not paying attention to the other dimensions of wellness, right? And it's just, or they're always at their job, which like occupational wellness is a thing, right? Or they're always worried about finances. But if you're doing those things to the extent that you're no longer thinking about like eating or sleeping or things like that, like now it's having a detriment to the other areas of wellness of your life, right? And that's not good for you. You're going to feel it, even though you're like, you feel like you're doing everything right that you possibly could be. And of course, if we're more comfortable in one dimension of wellness, we're going to lean into that. And most of us are. We naturally, one of the 8, like kind of speaks to us. You know what I mean? We tend to be a more spiritual person or a more like fitness-based person, or, you know, a more like workaholic, right? If we're feeling off, we tend to lean even more into it.
Right. Yeah.
Feeling like we're doing something wrong.
Right.
And then like the other dimensions of wellness like seriously go out the window,
For
right?
sure.
Like I've met people who are like so stressed with work, and then they work more, and I'm like, when's the last time you ate or slept or anything? And they're like, I don't know what that is. And it's like, maybe you should like go for a walk and get some food.
Right.
Like that would be helpful for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's so amazing that like you offer that and bring that up, that like people can come to you, and it might not even be that they're struggling to figure out what they believe, but it's like, I know what I believe, I'm doing so much with it, and I feel burnt out, and I don't know why, because with our faith you almost feel like the more I'm leaning into this and the more I'm doing it, the better I should feel.
Right.
But that's not always the case. And it is a case-by-case basis, like spirituality is.
Right.
I feel like someone working with you, is it so personalized for them, right? Because if you're going to a mentor or someone like a friend or a family, they're coming from their worldview and perspective, and they don't know that because they're not a coach, but they're bringing their jigsaw puzzle, and if you're dumping.
Right.
If you as a client are dumping your jigsaw puzzle, and you're saying that to a friend or a family member or a mentor, and they're dumping their jigsaw puzzle, how much more confusing that is.
Yeah.
How much
you're
more
taking home other people's pieces with
Right.
you. You're like, some of mine are gone.
Right.
Where's that corner piece?
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
No.
Right. And to be talking with you as well, not only are you not putting your own puzzle there, but you're coming with this informed emotional side as well.
Right.
Where someone is talking about their spirituality, whether it's in that burnt out way where there's so much pressure on them, and they know what they believe, but they don't know how to handle what they believe and how to practice that. Or it's the uncertainty of, I don't know what I believe. to have the informed emotion side to it is pretty special. And I don't think that that's often found when you're going to somebody for spiritual guidance, that they're informed in that emotional way
Right.
as well.
Oh, definitely.
It's really cool.
Yeah. It's exciting.
It's very exciting. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I think what's cool too is it sounds like what you do is so niche, right? It's specialized. It's something that's very specific. And my hope is if it's, like when people find out about you and they find out about either the emotion coaching or the spiritual coaching, and that fits for them, man, reach out to you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the scope of our new world, we can either meet virtually or in person, and that's exciting to be able to offer that flexibility.
Yeah, definitely.
It's exciting to be part of the team and
Yes.
jump in and be able to work through, holistically with clients and be able to say, hey, I'm passionate about helping people, and just having that work through and shine through, not just with me by myself, but as a team. Like I said, when we worked at the daycare and trying to help kids at the daycare, the best thing we could do was have a team. And
Yeah.
our team working together helped the kids more. And when our team was on the same page and when the passion aligned with that team, it just really made all the difference, It's a team working on holistic health and working on making sure we're making the world just a little bit better, even if it's just in the little pocket that we live in,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
If we can make a difference for that one person that comes sees you or sees you, then that means the world. I think that's such an incredible word to just say that it's more than just someone seeing just you. It's the team that's also behind you, and
Right.
to help people see that their support systems, who's behind with them.
Right.
So thanks again, Charles, for coming
Absolutely.
aboard. I think from our interactions with you, it's been nothing but we just fall more in love with you every time we talk to you. And my hope is anyone watching this felt a little bit in love with you as well, just like we have. And yeah.
Cool.